A very good afternoon and welcome to each of you to this special official launch of Jamaica Strong and Free, a civic education handbook. And I want to start by thanking there Mr. Marlon Williams Jr. for that stirring rendition of Chronix's I Can. And today represents another milestone, which is why that tune is so important to us today in the history of the independent office of the political ombudsman. This is a special day because it allows us to focus on one of the primary goals of today's event, which is to awaken the social consciousness of Jamaicans, especially those between the ages of 15 and 30, through civic education in an effort to safeguard our democracy. I am Archibald Gordon, a broadcast journalist, and I'm honored to be your moderator today as we both launch this important and historic publication, as well as hold discussions about the subject matter of the book itself, civic education. But before we go further, I'd like to introduce Mr. Othniel Lamy. He's a member of the Political Awareness and Respect Initiative, PARI, who will be singing the national anthem. Othniel?
Good afternoon, everyone. So, Eternal Father, bless your land. Guard us with thy mighty hand. Keep us free from evil powers. Be our light throughout this house. To our leaders, great defender, grant wisdom from above. Justice, truth be ours forever. Jamaica, land we love. Jamaica, 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 land we love. Teach us true respect for all. Stir response to duties call. Strengthen us, the weak to check. Give us vision, let's be carriage. Knowledge send us, Heavenly Father, grant wisdom from above. Justice, truth be ours forever. Jamaica, land we love. Jamaica, 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 land we love. Land we love.
Thank you very much, Othni. Dr. Clover Hamilton Flowers, Deputy Chief Education Officer in charge of core curriculum and support services, representing the Honorable Favour Williams, Minister of Education and Youth, Senator Gabriella Morris, Opposition Spokesperson on Youth and Sport, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Ms. Valerie Curtis, Clerk to the Houses of Parliament, Senior Superintendent of Police, Cleon March, representing Major General Anthony Anderson, the Commissioner of Police, representatives of the Commissions of Parliament, representatives of political parties, representatives of youth arms of political parties, Ms. Maureen Thompson, Director General of the Jamaica Library Service, Mr. Alan Lewis, Managing Director of JN Fund Managers, Ms. Tresson Kremer, Ms. Lena Buckle-Scott, author of Jamaica Strong and Free, a Civic Education Handbook, members of the panel who will be discussing the issue of civic education today, Bishop Harold Blair, former political ombudsman, specially invited guests, the Honorable Donna Parchment Brown, political ombudsman, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, all good afternoon. And once again, welcome to this launch of Jamaica Strong and Free, a Civic Education Handbook. The aim, as we said, is to awaken the social consciousness of Jamaicans, particularly in the 15 to 30 age group. The Civic Education Handbook introduces Jamaicans to the importance of civic participation, the workings and significance of government and society, and so on. It includes a brief look at the Jamaican Constitution, along with insights on the pillars of good governance and key institutions which assist in the smooth operation of the country's affairs. A summary at the end of each chapter, along with interactive activities, will help the readers with self-assessment or sharing knowledge with others. This launch comes roughly a year after the Office of the Political Ombudsman launched a campaign review report of the 2020 parliamentary elections. That was the first such review in the nation's history. Now, that review report highlighted the need for greater civic education and included a set of key recommendations now being tackled by the Office of the Political Ombudsman. The Civic Education Handbook is the product, one of the products, I should say, of that work. It includes sections covering civic responsibilities, a brief history of the political and electoral processes in Jamaica, voter education, the electoral cycle, the Jamaican Constitution in a nutshell, Jamaica's governance structure and processes, and roles and functions of some key institutions. And at this point in the function, I would like to introduce a member of the Political Awareness and Respect Initiative, Ms. Sharika Campbell, who will be introducing a special video that will give us an insight into the Political Awareness and Respect Initiative, who are key partners in this launch of the Civic Education Handbook. Sharika?
The Political Awareness and Respect Initiative, PARI, is a key element of the Office of the Political Ombudsman Public Outreach Campaign. PARI is a team of talented, dynamic, and devoted young Jamaicans who collaborate with the OPO to engage their peers to work towards strengthening Jamaica's democratic framework, as well as to encourage conversations on issues related to politics, democracy, good governance, and the rule of law. Additionally, PARI aims to increase public awareness of the Office of the Political Ombudsman and its mandate, form alliances with other youth organizations, national groups, and informal associations, and promote youth participation in governance. Members of PARI have been afforded opportunities to share their views on topical issues on various media platforms. Our informative forums with guest presenters, namely Honorable Parchment Brown, Her Excellency Tuda Kovish, Miss Jody Inquiry, Senator Gabriela Morris, Mr. Alex Neal, and Miss Gillian Mullins continue to gain traction from our youth while imparting knowledge. In an effort to promote information retention gained from the forums, PARI hosted a videographic competition that provided young creatives with an opportunity to use their talents to create videos that are appealing to their peers while promoting democracy. The Political Awareness and Respect Initiative is devoted to continuing to educate the nation's youth and Jamaica at large. With future partnerships with other organizations, we will be better able to cater to a wider audience and champion the post-pandemic reset in matters of democracy, good governance, and civic knowledge. Please turn your eyes to the screen as we share a very interactive video.
Well, go on, PARI. You know, as an aspiring public servant, I'm glad that the Office of the Political Ombudsman, through PARI, has given youth like me the opportunity to raise my voice in unison.
I'm thrilled and honored to have PARI, the Political Awareness and Respect Initiative, made up of young Jamaicans who are working with the Office of the Political Ombudsman to help improve our politics.
PARI ensures that the future generation has a voice promoting respect among political players and deepening our knowledge of democracy right here in Jamaica. Kamima PARI.
Let us join the movement to uphold Jamaican values.
Citizens, politicians, and youth alike.
Make we show respect
from one PARI to the next.
No, we had hoped to have the Minister of Education here today, but because of other conflicts, she is not able to be here. But she is being ably represented by Dr. Clover Hamilton Flowers, who is Deputy Chief Education Officer in charge of core curriculum and support services. And we now invite her to make her presentation. Okay, just having a little bit of trouble finding Dr. Flowers at this moment. We will get back to that item in a moment. So for the moment, we're going to be moving on to our keynote speaker today in the form of the political ombudsman herself. But to make that introduction, I'm going to be inviting Mr. Tavoy Barrett, who is a communications intern at J&N Fund Managers, as well as at the Office of the Political Ombudsman. And he's a member of the Political Awareness and Respect Initiative, as well as the president of the UTEC Students Union. He's very, very busy. Tavoy, over to you.
Everyone hearing me?
Yes, we are. Go ahead, please.
Sworn in on 16th of November 2015 to serve Jamaica as its second political ombudsman and the first woman to hold that office. She is a strong advocate for youth engagement, the rule of law, and democracy. Honorable Donna Parchment Brown has worked all across the Caribbean as a mediator, trainer, and development practitioner. She has served as Custos Rotalorum for the parish of St. Andrew, as a member of the Reparations Committee, chair of Hampton School for Girls, and on other national and regional bodies, including Jamaica Cooperative Credit Union League Limited and the UN Women, NGO Regional Advisory Council for Latin America and the Caribbean. The Honorable Donna Parchment Brown believes that everything we do will blossom at its time and bear fruit at its season. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Honorable Donna Parchment Brown.
Thank you very much, Tavoy. I must take the opportunity, our dear moderator, Archibald Gordon, to say to all who are gathered with us this afternoon, how grateful we are that they took the time to be with us. As everyone knows, we had hoped to be together in a physical setting, supported by others in the digital space. But as they say, COVID still a keep. And so we thank you for the late notice. I know there are some people on this platform whose beautiful outfits, hairdos, and so on would have been perfect for face-to-face, but please forgive us. As soon as it's possible, we will arrange another opportunity to be together. I'm so grateful to see the array of wonderful leaders, Jamaicans, and our diplomatic friends who are present today. I'm just so thrilled that you made the time. So, hugs and laughter. It's beautiful, we did it. That was Tuesday, May 10 at 11 a.m. when we first held the mock-up in our hands. So many persons have contributed to the production of what we believe is an important contribution to Jamaica in this our Diamond Jubilee year, and also the 20th anniversary of the Political Ombudsman Commission. The title, Jamaica Strong and Free, a Civic Education Handbook, captures for us both aspiration and inspiration for more civic knowledge, stronger civic dispositions, and a renewed Jamaican commitment to respect, to unity, and to our democracy. It is in a way a successor to the work of Mr. Leonard Cecil Ruddock, who in 1967 published the 190-page book called Civics for Young Jamaicans. And I think there are a few people on this platform who may have used that in primary school or high school. A rare copy was lent to me by Mrs. Dolores MacLeod of St. George's College, and I assure you I have returned that rare book to her. I'm very grateful to her for that. It was Charles Schulz in a Peanuts comic strip who had Charlie Brown say to Snoopy, Howard Melville, author of Moby Dick, advised, to produce a mighty book, you must choose a mighty name. We hope this name hits the jackpot. We could easily have called it, in the words of the artist Christopher Martin, you're a big deal and all of your friends are a big deal too. Because as he continues, it has nothing to do with money or fame. This one is all about self-worth. Civics has been the subject of thousands of pages, hundreds of books, millions of bytes, and innumerable speeches. Everybody knows that it exists, that we need to understand and apply it more, but not exactly what it is. Like art, sometimes it's what you like and what you know. But we think we can contribute something. Jamaica Strong and Free, a Civic Education Handbook, is a Political Ombudsman Commission of Parliament's response to a long repeated call as we join other persons and institutions in a response. In October 2020, as you heard, we hosted Jamaica's first election campaign review after the September 3rd general elections. The idea for an election review was raised by members of a delegation from the Commonwealth Secretariat who were hosted by us in May 2019. They advised that reviews were now a global best practice. Mindful of our mandate, we chose to do a campaign review. We're grateful for the support of the International Foundation for Electoral Systems, funded by USAID, and I think their representative, Mr. Williams, is with us. They partnered with us. We hosted over 50 stakeholder discussions in different groups and elite interviews in which we heard from academia, young people, civil society, political parties, media, police liaison officers, churches, and business representatives, and others. We used in-person discussions along with anonymous surveys and Zoom poll questions. And I see that some representatives of political parties are on the platform with us this afternoon, and I especially welcome them. The outcome document of the 2020 General Election Campaign Review Report was published in March 2021. Among the common issues, a thread led to recommendations that we folded together as a call for civic education and political education for a civic voice. And we understand that it must be collaborative. With ICS's support, we were able to retain the services of Mrs. Lena Buckle-Scott, Badge of Honor for Meritorious Service, a retired veteran of the Ministry of Education and Youth. Mrs. Buckle-Scott has authored, co-authored, and edited numerous textbooks, catalogs, and other resources for social studies, history, and related areas, some for exam curricula. Her experience has included CSEC, Statin, the Joint Board of Teacher Education, and the ministry, as I mentioned. Her passion, backed by knowledge, research, and openness, has been invaluable. We also put together an internal staff and associates working group led by our tireless legislative counsel, Ms. Yannick Douglas, and a consultation group nominated by the Jamaica Umbrella Group of Churches, the Jamaica Council of Churches, the Anglican Diocese, the JMEA, political parties, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, media, and PARI. As you have heard, PARI is the youth outreach arm, and you heard from the chairman, Ms. Sharika Campbell. We wanted to be inclusive and collaborative in our work, modeling our hope for Jamaica. Here we are on the Zoom platform, and I think we can thank COVID for this. We can see one another whenever we want, wherever we are dispersed, and still have a great conversation and a good time together. Now, when I wrote my speech, I mentioned the visual treat you would have in seeing the book, because I thought you all would have had a chance to have it in hand. So now I'm holding it up so that you can see it. I hope it's okay, Archie.
Just a little higher, madam.
All right. So this is a visual treat. It is a vision on paper of a most creative and flexible woman, Mrs. Heather Kong Smith of Heather Kong Design, and printed expertly and quite quickly by Pear Tree Press. We have read, reread, proofread, debated, updated, and then we said, stop. We just have to stop. In developing the book, we affirmed that there is so much information that could and should be at citizens' fingertips, and so many sources, including websites of many agencies that we have included. This, we could have done an encyclopedia of 26 volumes, but this is where we stopped. We think this book's 7 chapters and 62 pages are chock full of useful information. And we hope that where there are gaps, errors, or other defects, you will be merciful, forgive us, and remedy them. We hope this beautiful, user-friendly, easy-to-handle book will inspire and equip you to be a more active player and expert on Jamaica land we love, including the work of your political ombudsman and the Agreement and Declaration on Political Conduct. We are committed to the underlying theme and purpose of this commission, strengthening democracy, accountability, and the fulfillment of our motto, out of many one people. Civic education has been defined by Nigerian Samuel Tinibu as a public, socially oriented system of continuous education and upbringing aimed at building civic competence, democratic culture, and satisfying the needs for socialization in the interests of the individual, civil society, and the rule of law. This book should help us all to be more aware and active regarding what Margaret Stinon Branson, a US scholar, reminds us of our personal rights, such as freedom of conscience, political rights, such as the ability to vote and run for office, economic rights, such as our freedom to join a union and to invest, as the Jamaica National Fund Managers Alan Lewis has helped us understand. Personal responsibility, behaving in a civil manner, and this is a real issue for us today. And civic responsibility, obey the law, pay taxes, do jury duty, monitor political leaders and government agencies, and vote. We are a special country, blessed by a creator with an eye for beauty, and perhaps some of us would say a sense of humor, because Jamaican with different man. This book, like Jamaica, it little, but it talawa. And that is who we are, and that is what we do. In the words of our great artist, Agent Sasko, let his powerful, optimistic words ring in our hearts, no matter the circumstances we're living in. You hear me? We're winning right now. Optimism, we have hope. We're winning right now, no matter how it seems. And always knowing, as Coffee chants for us, we no rise and boast. Yeah, we give thanks like we need it the most. We have to give thanks like we're really supposed to. Be thankful. Blessings all upon our life, and we thank God for the journey of Jamaica. We are proudly the home of phenomenal young people, philosophers, scientists, athletes, exponents of the creative arts, educators, human rights activists, politicians, justice advocates, and so much more. Yet, we face a trust and civic engagement deficit. The recently released 2022 IDB report, Trust, the Key to Social Cohesion and Growth in Latin America and the Caribbean, like the 2016-2017 La Pop survey, suggests that a low level of trust exists in our region, leading to low compliance with rules and low participation, as well as mistrust and social fragmentation, all of which affect the development and implementation of public policy. In that context, Andres Velasco, Dean of the School of Public Policy at the London School of Economics and Political Science, like many of our esteemed Jamaican scholars and researchers, some of whom are in this chat, and some of whom we consulted with in coming up with this handbook. Like our scholars and researchers, Andres Velasco posits, if we don't fix politics, we won't be able to fix trust. And I add, we will therefore miss our national promise and national possibility. All the little children in school sing this song, you're a promise, you're a possibility, that's known by all the children. And we, the adults, have a duty to take that message to heart. We intend to undertake a training of trainers course for persons who are able to reach out to the groups, whether in your own homes, in communities, in churches, clubs, and institutions. And we have emailed the application form to you. We had intended to hand it to you directly. Please complete the form online and submit if you are interested in being part of the Training of Trainers program. We can achieve much when we work together. This book is free, the content is free, and we don't want it sitting on a shelf. We thank the Canadian High Commissioner, Your Excellency Emina Tudakovic, for your assistance with materials for the training kits and shirts for PARI members, some of whom will be trained as trainers. This resource, which we launched today, is available, I repeat, free on our website at www.opo.gov.jm and on our social media pages. If any person or organization wishes to print copies, we will happily release our copyright for your reprint. So if it costs you something to print, you may recover that cost from those you intend to distribute it to. You, my fellow Jamaicans, here and wherever we are in this special land called Jamaica or in our diaspora, we have the required ancestral ingenuity and resilience, along with our friends from the global village, to reset in this our year of Jubilee. We must care for one another. We must solve problems. We must do our duty as laid out in our anthem, motto, pledge, and constitution. We must equip ourselves with knowledge to support one another and to have meaningful engagement on important topics. It is our duty as citizens. Let us reset in this, the year of Jubilee. This is not the time to stand back and say, I can't do nothing. As the thing said, nothing can be done about it until God come. No, we are here and we have a duty. And we hope this little book will be a useful resource to help us all on the journey to Jamaica, strong and free. Thank you very much. God bless us all.
Thank you so much, Madam. In the chat, I don't think you're able to see it right now, but the PARI representatives are wondering where you heard all of those songs, where you know all of those songs from. So clearly, very much a powerful speech, and we're seeing that in the chat as well. People saying that it's a powerful, and PARI representatives, the youth, who are one of the primary targets of this civic education handbook, saying that they were, pleased to be able to assist. At this point, we have Dr. Flowers Hamilton on Hamilton Flowers, I'm so sorry, online, and I know, and hand over to her to make her presentation. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you very much. Let me take this time to recognize the presence of some important persons. I want to extend salutations and greetings to Mr. Archibald Gordon, Master of Ceremony, to Senator Gabriel Morris, Opposition Spokesperson on Youth and Sports, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Ms. Valerie Curtis Clerk, to the Houses of Parliament, Honorable Mrs. Donna Parchment Brown, Political Ombudsman, Cleon Marsh, Mr. Senior Superintendent of Police, representing the Commissioner of Police, Major General Anthony Anderson, members of the panel, Mr. David Salmon, Ms. Unique Douglas, and Mr. David Hamilton, specially invited guests. Good afternoon. First, may I express appreciation on behalf of the Ministry of Education and Youth for the invitation to participate in today's launch of Jamaica Strong and Free. And I must add that the very title of it is promising. This civic education handbook by Mrs. Donna Parchment Brown is one that we are applauding at this time in our history. Such a publication is welcome because it is a major addition to the materials we already have available that aim to teach our people, especially our students, about their rights, duties, and responsibilities as citizens. It's also about exposing them to what governance is all about and to help them to recognize the relationship between being a citizen and the responsibilities and roles of government. It is a well-timed and excellent move towards helping to contribute to civic awareness and overall involvement as we harness our efforts together to help to instill in our students the kind of dispositions that are necessary for them to recognize that as fellow Jamaicans, they too have a great contribution to make to nation building. I am convinced that it will also be welcomed by many citizens who have been calling over the years for an inclusion of civics education in schools. These calls have helped to inspire us to remain committed to our efforts to expand the reach of the Culture in Education program designed to promote civic education in our schools. And when we're talking about the Culture in Education program, I'd want us to remember that we oftentimes remember it from the perspective of being involved in Jamaica Day events, but we want it to be known that Jamaica Day is simply the start of the year's activities that are dedicated to culture in education. And in this regard, we pay attention to citizenship, help our students to have greater appreciation of self, looking at their own identity as Jamaicans. Also, exposing them to the messages that we convey by way of our national symbols and helping them to respect these symbols. It's also about helping our students to remember those who have passed through these maybe these avenues of life to help us to be where we are today. We talk about them as our national leaders and also as icons. And we must never forget those around us every day who make significant contribution to our lives by way of encouraging us, by challenging us, sometimes even rebuking us, but doing so in a manner that is saying to us we ought to be a people of integrity, and that together we are to be committed to building Jamaica. We must acknowledge too that for this event today, we are being encouraged to continue focusing on our national curriculum and to do our best to ensure that we continue to promote civic education from as early as the early years. And we know that this is actually being done already in a variety of ways with our children and our more mature learners, but also because in Jamaica we're promoting lifelong learning, our goal will be to reach those who are more mature. The particular focus of this handbook is of importance to us. Too often, we hear Jamaicans, especially our younger people, expressing deep cynicism about the political process. And at the same time, they are conveying a lack of understanding of how the system works and their role in ensuring a healthy, vibrant democracy. It is imperative that we strive to be citizens that are actively involved in our governance. Civic education prepares us to play that role, and when we're able to find the kind of resources that will challenge us to be more introspective and to be actively involved, we want to be among those who are celebrating this significant contribution. Let me express commendations to Mrs. Parchment Brown on her contribution to civic education by way of this handbook. We know that a variety of formats will help us to reach a wide range of audience. And we want to remember that print, digital, sound, audio, these are actually appealing to Jamaicans. I must also specially commend the youth participants in the political process and also respect their role. Let us continue together to recognize all those who have joined hearts and hands to ensure that in Jamaica, we are celebrating who we are, that in Jamaica, we recognize the power of working together and that we have a significant role to play in making this world a better place. Congratulations to you, and we look forward to the impact that this resource will have on the education system and Jamaica on a whole. Bless you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hamilton Flowers. We are going to be hearing a little bit more about the Civic Education Handbook in a while when we have the panel discussion. But for the moment, we're going to be having our second musical presentation. And I'd like to welcome again Mr. Marlon Williams, Jr. Marlon. Thank you very much, Marlon. It's now time to we're going to be turning our attention right now, rather, to a panel discussion exploring the relevance of civic education in the 21st century, as well as looking at the Civic Education Handbook, Jamaica Strong and Free. And I'd like to invite all of the panelists, first of all, to turn their cameras on, because of course we're on Zoom. So we need that to be done first of all. And in the meantime, I'll begin to introduce them one at a time, beginning with Senator Gabriela Morris. Senator Morris is a 25-year-old youth advocate, entrepreneur, and a senator appointed to the upper house of the Jamaican Parliament. She is also a member of the People's National Party, the opposition spokesperson on youth and sport, and chairperson of the opposition's junior shadow cabinet. I'd also like to welcome Mr. David Salmon, who's a member of the Political Awareness and Respect Initiative and an award-winning opinion journalism writer as well from the Press Association of Jamaica. I'd also like to welcome Mr. David Hamilton. He's a senior advisor at the International Foundation for Electoral Systems, and they have been making this project work, funders of this project that has resulted in not just the campaign review report that we mentioned before, but also this publication, Jamaica Strong and Free, a Civic Education Handbook. And last but not least, I'd also like to welcome Ms. Yannick Douglas, who is Legislative Counsel in the Office of the Political Ombudsman. And we have been fielding questions from members of the public overall about civic education and about the relevance of civic education in the 21st century. And I'd actually like to start with the Senator, Gabriela Morris. And this question comes from Ms. Antoinette Anderson. And that question is that recent reports say that less than 3% of prospective jurors turned up after being called to serve. Do the statistics highlight the need for a new approach to civic education among the wider society?
Thank you, Archibald. And let me say good afternoon to all the participants, the panelists, to the political ombudsman and everyone who works in her office, as well as those who might be joining us. I'm not able to see the participants, and I hope this video, I haven't yet figured out the background thing, Archibald. So I hope it's not too distracting. But I really...
There are about 80 people here, Senator, and there are also people on the Public Broadcasting Corporation of Jamaica, I should mention.
Amazing, amazing. So let me say good evening, a fulsome good evening to everyone. So I want to start off by really adding my commendations to the political ombudsman and her team for really putting together not just this launch, but for putting some real effort into putting together this handbook. Civic education for me is something that I'm passionate about. It's actually the focus of my academic work. And so for me, I really had to make an effort to be a part of this event this evening. I think that civic education, especially among our young people, is something that is definitely lacking. We have to start from that basis. And when we look at a particular group of people, such as jurors, I think you mentioned in the example, you know, the statistics are definitely alarming. And it definitely raises cause for concern, because what it highlights is that there is a possibility that many of our citizens do not feel the need to engage in this type of civic activity. And I want to say that this handbook, as well as this new thrust from the Office of the Political Ombudsman, I think is a necessary step in getting Jamaicans on a whole to understand the responsibility that comes with being a citizen. Because understanding is one of the fundamental things that will drive participation. If people don't understand why they need to do something or the merits of doing something, then they won't participate. And that's just a fact. So I think that this fundamental step of pushing education, of making sure that Jamaicans on a whole understand their responsibilities as citizens, one of those responsibilities being participating in this judicial element, you know, of serving as a juror. Once they understand that and come to a greater appreciation of this role or of the necessity of this role, then I think more people will be inclined to participate. And so it brings to the fore the need for us to continue to push civic education long after this launch and actually make it something practical for Jamaican people, something that they can identify with. And so marketing is going to become a huge part of this effort, not just starting with our adults. So not just waiting until they're right on the cusp of being called to be jurors, but starting from an earlier age, perhaps even at the primary level, you know, of engaging them and helping them to understand their civic responsibilities. So when they get to this level of being called, you know, to serve as a juror, they'll be more inclined to participate. So marketing and education at this point, I believe, go hand in hand in getting more persons to participate in this way.
All right, from that, thank you, Senator. From that perspective, I want to continue along that thread and go now to David Hamilton on that question right there of what you think is the best way of inspiring young people to increase their political and civic participation. This is a question, by the way, that was shared by the Canadian High Commissioner to Jamaica.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gordon. And hello to everyone and good afternoon. My name is David Hamilton. I'm with the International Foundation for Electoral Systems, IFES, based in the United States. And we have been partners with the Office of the Political Ombudsman going on 2 years now at this point in time. Greetings. Thank you for the question. In regards to the best ways to increase potential and inspire young people, it's really important that formal actors like elected leaders and non-formal actors in communities like teachers, families, friends, famous musicians, or sports coaches recognize and acknowledge the contributions that young people of all ages make to their communities, so that young people can see people like themselves leading change, but they also so they have opportunities to learn from each other. I think it's important to also talk about what are some of the impediments to increasing political and civic participation. An impediment to young people's civic participation around the world it can be young people feeling that they're not leaders. And this is a sentiment compounded by cultural norms or hierarchies that frequently privilege adult men as leaders. And that's true in Jamaica as well as true in the United States and almost everywhere in the world. Another impediment is not understanding political and government processes. We're not feeling like they make a difference, both of which can be combated through effective and accessible civic education. It is our belief, IFES, and we do civic education around the world in approximately 50 countries, is that civic education is powerful not only in instilling in young people the skills and knowledge to be leaders in their communities, but also in its ability to extend past the person who's learning, the learner, to families and communities to create intergenerational learning opportunities in attitude or behavior shifts. So coming home from the classroom and talking with your parents or grandparents or your fellow students. Civic education, we believe, provides young people with the tools to be leaders and a safe environment in which they can build those skills and their confidence to be leaders in their communities and to engage both politically and civically. Civic education provides inspiration for young people.
Thank you very much, David. You mentioned two groups there, and I heard Senator talk about those groups as well, and I want to address them one at a time. First, by moving to Yannick and then to David. First, this question of one of the important stakeholder groups being educators overall. So Yannick, do you think this book would be welcomed by educators? What overall is the target group? And then David, I want to talk about the role of young people overall.
Thank you, Archibald. Yes, I do believe that this book will be very welcomed by educators. This book seeks to condense in a handbook form a number of different areas of civic information and civic responsibilities that generally is held in different institutions. What we hope to achieve here is to put that information, and as much as we can in a short form, information that is coming from the EOJ, coming from the government, coming from the courts, and really inform young people in the best way possible, information about their country and how they can be citizens. We're talking about their civic responsibilities. We're talking about their voting rights. We're talking about key institutions that each person can know about and be aware of. And I think this is very important for educators to have in hand, so that any questions that may be asked by their students can be answered by using this handbook. So yes, I do believe it will be welcomed. It will definitely assist in the information that currently exists, and is just a helping hand for persons who are in this area to use and to guide the youth.
So educators are one key group, but David Salmon, I want to talk about young people here. And a question here from Miss Oshin Gale, who says, do you think civic education can change the behavior of youth in these times? And how will you reach them with the information in this group, in this book? And I know PARI has been, one of the primary partners in terms of getting that information out. So do you think it can actually affect that kind of behavior change?
All right, thank you very much for the question, Archibald. And I do think that young people play a very crucial role in the political process. It is important to note that Jamaica has experienced declines in its youth development score over the last 10 years, with political and civic participation experiencing the greatest decline in that decade, and a decline of 6%. So what that indicates is that clearly there is a disconnect between the idea of political representation and what young people are looking at in their own personal development. And PARI is particularly suited to provide this framework. I had the opportunity to be a part of PARI from its inception. And one of the goals of PARI is really to ensure that young people are informed about the political process, so they know how they can go and make an impact, because that is extremely important. Knowledge of the institutions of governance in order to go and make an impact is essential. So can young people make an impact by being more informed? Absolutely. Because when we know of the different institutions and how they work, then young people can engage with those institutions, can provide feedback, commentary, facilitate improvement, and that is important. And now going into how we intend to really broadcast this information, PARI is an organization that is comprised of individuals across Jamaica. That is the most important thing. It's not centered in Kingston, it's not centered in urban spaces, it's across the entire Jamaica. And the benefit of that is that you are able now to achieve grassroots influence across the board. So different stakeholder groups are a part of PARI, different representatives are a part of PARI. So a part of the strategy now to broadcast that information is ensuring that the different groups are represented. Madam Parker would have spoken about training of different PARI representatives. So from there, you facilitate training so they know what to do, and then they go to their respective groups and conduct trainings with their groups. And then the Office of the Political Ombudsman will continue its strategy to ensure that they provide education in the respective schools and institutions accordingly.
I see David Hamilton putting in the chat information there from youth development scholars saying early exposure to democratic ideals and behaviors leads to more active citizen engagement overall. I don't know if that's a point you want to elaborate on, David.
Just a real quick point is that if young people in their first election vote, they frequently have had civic education. And so it's been statistically proven in many countries that if you receive civics education before you vote, that you're more likely to actually vote. And I think that is what one of those articles says. Thank you.
All right, and Senator, so you're shaking your head there. You work in the political scene, in the Senate in this instance, not in representational politics, but also working in the political scene overall. What are some of the key things that have to be done to convince people who seem to be disinterested in the political process, or disengaged, or just upset, that this is important, and how can civic education play a part in that process?
Yeah, something that David Salmon actually said resonated with me, and it comes back to citizens feeling as if they have a part to play. I think that's very important for a lot of Jamaicans. For far too long, they've felt as if they're on the sidelines of the process, I believe, as if they're just, mere tools, I say. And we have to begin to dispel that notion. And I believe that some of that comes with civic education. It comes with reiterating what they should know about their responsibility as a citizen and how important it is that they participate. Because for a lot of Jamaicans, they see, participation as just voting. And that's not the totality of civic participation. And so we need to start to re-educate Jamaicans on how they can effectively contribute to the political system outside of voting. Because for a lot of Jamaicans, they see voting as this area that they really don't want to touch. And so I think that it's important to reiterate the fact that there are other ways of participating. I think that there are lots of Jamaicans who would buy into that notion of probably using, tools such as petitions, learning how to organize protest. That's something that shows up in more mature democracies that I think it's important for us to start to, show up here in Jamaica and teach citizens how to participate that way. Because for a lot of them, the electoral and the traditional ways of participating, they believe, have failed them. Another thing that I think is very important as an aspect of civic education is teaching people about the accountability mechanisms that are available to them. I think once people feel as if they have more control of the process, or once people feel as if they can participate and sufficiently, hold their leaders accountable, they'll be more likely or more inspired to actually take part.
Thank you, Senator. And by the way, I noted earlier someone was asking about, saying they were having some difficulty finding or getting to download the book. The link is in the chat right now. It's Tavoy Barrett from the Political Awareness and Respect Initiative has shared that link in the chat. No, I want to move the discussion talking about how we do this at a practical level. So I want to go back to Yannick Douglas here. What are some of the steps that the Office of the Political Ombudsman is going to be taking in terms at a practical level to train people to get the civic education message out to Jamaicans overall?
Thank you, Archibald. I believe Madam had already started on that conversation where she pointed out in her speech that we will be engaging trainers as well as sharing the copyright of the book with others. So who wants to print the book, they can do so. As we begin with this launch, this is the first step in, I believe, distribution, because as Senator Morris pointed out earlier in her statement, she said that a part of this is marketing. And I certainly think that this launch is a part of that marketing scheme that we intend to let everyone know that we have this book available and we had worked hard on it and we want to share it with our fellow Jamaicans. So that is the first step. The second step is to also share a hard copy of the handbook with various organizations and leaders of organizations. So we're hoping to share this book with Senator herself, the Ministry of Education, and other stakeholders who will then be able to share it with their organizations and the persons within it and all other connected people. On the book itself, you can find at the back of it a QR code, and this code provides easy access for persons to just scan the code and have a direct link to the book. So we have two forms in which we will be distributing the book: a handbook, the hard copy of it, as well as a soft copy or digital copy of the book. We also intend to create a version of the book that is disabled person friendly, if you will, for visually impaired people. And we intend to create that shortly after, in another few weeks, we hope. Through that, we are hoping that we will make the book very much accessible to all, as we intend to not only touch or able-bodied people, but persons with various disabilities. We want to ensure that all Jamaican citizens have the ability to see and experience everything that is contained within the book. Also, we will be, as Archie pointed out, and Madam had indicated before, engaging in training of trainers. And what we hope to do is engage persons from various organizations and have a training period where we teach persons various aspects of the book and create modules for persons to understand what is indeed contained within the book so they can share with their organization. And we will hope to then share the hard copy of the books with others. Now, as you know, we are a small commission, so we could only have a certain number of books printed. So we definitely so we ask you to understand that we cannot have a wide scale sharing of the hard copy, but we will certainly have everyone have access to the soft copy, and anyone who comes to us seeking to print it, we will definitely make it available for you so that we can have this book disseminated far and wide. We hope to then have the trainers move to their various organizations and share with them. And also, eventually, the hope is that we can touch the schools. Because as Madam had indicated before, we are seeking to share the book with persons between the ages of 15 to 30, persons who are about to vote, persons before the voting age, and of course, persons in my age range who have not really had a complete civic education, and we're hoping to share with them as well.
And as we're hoping to share the book with, I think a lot of people might be, with all of these different groups, I think a lot of people might be saying overall, why should young people be interested or care about this topic and this book overall? So I want to go back for a second to David's sermon and take a step back and ask that question. Why should young people be interested?
Well, young people should be interested because the institutions of government, the institutions of office impact them on a daily basis in every single step of the way. So, for example, when money is misappropriated in any situation, that is money that could otherwise be directed towards any program relating to young people. That's money that is no longer going towards education, no longer going towards improving the social services in our community. That is something that people should care about. When there is any instance of someone dying as or security forces go along the lines of duty, persons need to now see how can they achieve justice if it's the case where this is an extrajudicial killing. That impacts young people on a daily basis. We see that there is a high level of persons who are in communities who have unfortunately lost their lives to violence. People need to know how they can see recourse and seek justice. And what I particularly am pleased about to highlight with this book is that it outlines institutions that persons can go to. So it outlines the role of the Integrity Commission, what they do, what are the institutions that govern this body. It outlines the role of the political ombudsman. It outlines the public defender. So politics impacts young people every step of the way. If you're looking for a job and the state of the economy isn't going as it's supposed to be, that's politics. Political decisions improve the state of the economy. If you're looking at access to services and you're not able to do that, politics, that impacts those services there. So as a result of it being so instrumental in our lives on a day-to-day basis, it's important that young people take an interest in it so that they can now raise their voices and are able to share with the institutions of power how they can go and maximize their voice. And if there is any case where they feel like injustice has been done, how they can seek recourse accordingly.
I know the senator I know is shaking her head. And, this is one of the challenges you have. Someone involved in the political process, seeing the utility of it, but at the same time having to go and convince others. Are those some of the arguments you make? What are other arguments you make? And how well do they work?
Are you hearing me?
Yes, we are. Go for it.
All right. Yeah, so a lot of what David said, those are traditionally arguments that I have to use because for a lot of people, as I said before, politics is this thing that they want to stay as far away from as possible. But when you break it down in a practical sense, like David just did, many people begin to understand the implications of participating. So like you said, when you say to a person, all right, the decisions that are made in government, whether it relates to education, whether it relates to health, whether it relates to security, all of these are things that will essentially impact every Jamaican. It will touch some demographic. And so it's important for young people to understand that, yes, you do have a role to play, no matter how young you think you are. Even though you might say, you know, it's big people business and this is a big area that, you know, the government should deal with and you don't have a part to play. Yes, you have a part to play in registering how you feel about these issues, because it's through registering and participating that government will be able to make decisions that will ultimately impact you positively, right? So I want to send that message across to young people, especially, that your voice is needed in the conversation. Your voice is important to the government making decisions that will essentially impact you now and in the future. So participate, become a part of the conversation, vote, protest, do petitions, whatever way you see as participating, register your voice and register how you feel about these government issues, these big issues, because they will impact you, as David said.
I want to thank you, Senator. I want to just highlight some of the comments which are being made in the chat and to remind people as well that you can, of course, share comments, ask questions in the chat. I see Daniel Campbell saying civic education programs with the help of this handbook can have meaningful and relatively long-lasting effects in terms of increasing political information, feelings of empowerment, and mobilizing individuals to engage in political participation. And I also see Jeanette Calder of the Jamaica Accountability Meetup portal saying, I've gone to the website and flipped through. This is rich and so useful. JAMP will surely be drawing on the info and sharing in our workshops. Would love to partner with the Office of the Political Ombudsman and PARI to see how we can ensure this is disseminated. David Hamilton, I want to bring you back in here for a second to ask you this question that was posed by representatives of St. George's College here in Jamaica. And that question is, what programs are in place to complement civics curriculum and to inspire young students to become responsible members of the electorate?
Thank you very much, Mr. Gordon. In terms of what programs are in place to complement civics curriculum and inspire students, it's important that building and supporting democratic processes is something that we see happening across the world. And it's led by young people of voting age and young people who are below voting age. So both are important in that inspiration. That kind of activities that we're seeing working in a variety of places around the world are not just the formal civic education in schools, but also non-formal civic education activities like advocacy efforts, volunteering, and service programs. Not to mention, though, there's other things like street theater, music, dance, and storytelling are also important parts of civics education, and I think would work quite well in Jamaica. All of these different styles of complementing civics curriculum should aim to encourage and engage young people in civic and political life. Inclusive participation, meaningful engagement of underrepresented and marginalized populations are also important, particularly for young people, is necessary, and of course a foundational component of democracy. So I think there's a variety of different ways to go about doing it, and I think this Civic Education's Handbook is just the beginning.
Thank you, David. I want to just bring in a couple questions here and bring Yannick back in for information about how one can get the handbook, etc. Lots of different questions in relation to the handbook being asked on social media. I want to ask first a question here from David Abrikian, who says, will you consider a second edition or addendum to include bits from older civic education texts, for example, former senior Cambridge books? Senior Cambridge is a while ago.
Yes. Thank you, Archibald. In fact, I can say that our author, Mrs. Lena Buckle Scott, pulled from a previous book that Madam had even noted, Civics for Young Jamaicans, and we have to say that had been really useful as a guide and as a helpful information source for this book. We, of course, intend to have a book like this long term, and certainly if certain things have changed over the years, we would definitely want to incorporate that information. This is just the beginning for the office in terms of helping to bring young people into civic education and bring them information that they've been asking for. You know, this is not out of the air for us. We heard or participants from our review of the campaign, and we heard what they had to say. We had many young people on it, and a number of them indicated that they really need this information and they're asking for more. So we are definitely looking to ensure that this book has more editions if needed, and certainly we'll look into information from all sources that are applicable to us in Jamaica and to where our country is going forward when it comes to civic education. The hope is that we can increase participation and ensure that young people know the sources of help that they can get, and our government is here to assist us as citizens, and we need to be reminded of that. And I think that the book will help us ensure that persons know their civic responsibilities and know exactly what the government is to do for them.
No, I have one more comment in the chat. I'm going to be asking the panelists here to just make some closing thoughts or comments as we bring this panel discussion to a close. But first, a quick comment from, let's start with David Salmon, but first a quick comment from Newton Dixon in the chat, who says, this initiative and process are entirely welcomed and embraced by the Jamaica Council of Churches, JCC. We extend heartiest commendations to the OPO and eagerly look forward to aggressively engaging this material among all components of our membership, especially the youth. So closing thoughts from each of the members, each member of the panel. I want to start with David Salmon.
Certainly, Archibald. I'd just like to say that it's a political philosopher, Edmund Burke, who had said the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is if good men and women do nothing. But I'd like to add, for good men and women to do something, they also need to be aware of what to do and how they can do it. And that first starts with civic education, political education. By developing an appreciation and knowledge of the institutions of government, how they function, where they work, that provides the best avenue to ensure that people know what to do and ultimately ensure that they play a very crucial, very important voice in overall running, sustenance, and management of the country.
From one David to the other, David Hamilton.
Thank you very much. I guess from the perspective of the International Foundation for Electoral Systems, from our work around the world, is that it is our sincere belief, and we've seen this proven scientifically, academically, as well as in participation rates, that civic education lays the foundation for increased community and political engagement. Full stop. It works. We know it does. It just needs to be done. We know that because folks that we've worked with around the world, many of whom are just like the folks at PARI, have gone on to run for political office, work in government institutions, or work with civil society organizations, or even to form their own civil society organizations. Young people who've been engaged in civic education program report increased confidence as leaders and a demonstrated greater engagement in their communities. We see this. It's good, and we absolutely support it. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Now to Senator Gabriela Morris.
Thanks, Archibald. I just want to close by saying that it's critical that we continue with this momentum. PARI has done great work by publishing this handbook. And I think from here on, the conversation and the actions have to be centered around deliberate marketing to get everyone on board. We have to, see somebody in the chat said, we have to start as early childhood. And I think I agree, because it starts from that level of getting young people, getting our children to have a sense of national pride and to have an understanding of how their country works. And I think from there, getting citizens to be more involved and getting citizens to be more knowledgeable, it will be easier for us to achieve Vision 2030. Easier to get all our citizens on board with the developmental goals that we have. And so we have to continue to market. We have to start from there. And perhaps it's an ideal time for us to agitate that conversation again about how we deal with civics in schools. We have to look at that, Archibald. And I want to close by saying to the young people, because I know that a lot of them are on this meeting, that the onus is on us to also lean into what we're learning, to lean into the civic education that we already have and participate. We cannot leave it up to the adults, quote unquote. We have to get involved and be a part of the change that we want to see for our country.
Yanni, thank you, Dennis.
Thank you, Archibald. I would just want to say that we at the Office of the Political Ombudsman are very proud of this handbook. We cannot wait to share it with all of you. Certainly, I am one of the target persons, and I, from my own personal experience, have recognized that I have lacked civic knowledge for many years of my life in terms of not having detailed information that I was not taught in high school or in primary school. And I found doing and going through this handbook, reading it, learning all this information, it opened my eyes to a lot of things that I was never aware of. And it helped me feel a lot more strength in my understanding of my country and my government. And it should not reach a point where you're almost 30 or 30 and yet have no real understanding of your country. And that is why we have a part of the reason why we're creating this book, not just for the very young, but also persons who are in my generation who were not able to get this information. It is certainly a book to reach all. And so we just want to remind you all that the training file, the training registration is there. And if you are willing and able and want to assist us in getting this handbook out there and distributed, we ask for your assistance, and you can just register and let us know if you want to be one of the trainers. This will ensure that, like Senator says, there is marketing, there is strong distribution of this book in the best way possible. We want to get everyone. We want everyone to know that this handbook is here and it is here to help. And that is all we want to do. We just want to help and assist our fellow Jamaicans in knowing what it is that their country is about, what it is that their government does. Thank you. Archibald, you're muted.
Thank you, Yannick, and I want to thank you as well as the other members of the panel in the form of David Hamilton, Senior Advisor at the International Foundation for Electoral Systems, as well as Mr. David Salmon from the Political Awareness and Respect Initiative, as well as Senator, Opposition Spokesperson on Youth and Sport, Senator Gabriela Morris. Thank you so much for participating in this rich panel discussion. Again, I want to share a couple of comments from the chat. I'm seeing Amanda Anderson saying that she's a deaf youth leader, and I'm elated to be a part of this launch. This is amazing that you can make it happen, and I can't wait to see what is the result here in Jamaica, along with our deaf community, which can benefit from this book. I've seen someone else, Devon Thompson, saying, I've just completed going through the handbook, and I do believe it will be a great resource, not just for voters, but for educators interested in educating Jamaicans on the country's system of governance. So again, thank the panelists, David Salmon, Unique Douglas, Senator Gabriel Morris, and David Hamilton. And at this moment, we're going to be going to another musical presentation from Mr. Marlon Williams Jr. Marlon, take it away. Thank you very much, Marlon. And to move the vote of thanks, I would like to invite Ms. Anne-Marie Brown, Administrative Assistant in the Office of the Political Ombudsman, forward.
Thank you so very much. Master of Ceremony, Mr. Archibald Gordon. Members of the Diplomatic Corps, Dr. Clover Hamilton Flowers, Deputy Chief Education Officer, Core Curriculum and Support Services, representing the Minister of Education and Youth, Honorable Mrs. Favors Williams. Senator Gabriela Morris, Opposition Spokesperson on Youth and Sport. Senior Superintendent of Police, Cleon March, representing the Commissioner of Police, Major General Anton Anderson. Clerk to the Houses of Parliament, Ms. Valerie Curtis. Representatives of the youth arms of the 4 political parties. Members of the panel, Mr. David Salmon, Ms. Unique Douglas, and Mr. David Hamilton. Representatives of commissions of parliament, special invited guests, and everyone here who took the time out to join with us this afternoon. Thank you for joining. On behalf of the Office of the Political Ombudsman, it is my absolute pleasure to convey our sincere appreciation to you all for taking the time to share with us in this momentous occasion, the launch of Jamaica Strong and Free, a civic education handbook. A lot has been said about books. I particularly like Joseph Anderson's quote. He said, "There is nothing that strengthens a nation like reading of a nation's own history, whether that history is recorded in books or embodied in customs, institutions, and monuments." End of quote. I am certain that if I should ask each of you to type in the chat a quote on books, your responses would be worthy of creating a book. Congratulations indeed are in order to the project team for their contribution and involvement and for their willingness to take on the completion of tasks at times beyond their comfort zones, working diligently to create an awesome publication from your suggestions. Ms. Unique Douglas, our project coordinator, Mrs. Lena Buckle-Scott, our consultant author, our International Foundation for Electoral Systems Partners, and the United States Agency for International Development, members of staff of the Office of the Political Ombudsman, respective members of staff of the Houses of Parliament, you all will agree that this is a job well done. Job well done, team. A big thank you to our political ombudsman, Honorable Mrs. Donna Parchment Brown, for her vision, her commitment and dedication in bringing to fruition this publication that we are confident will contribute significantly to our Jamaica in this, our Diamond Jubilee year and the 20th anniversary of the Political Ombudsman Commission. I agree with our political ombudsman that Jamaica Strong and Free is important as it captures for us our aspirations and inspirations for more civic knowledge, stronger civic dispositions, and a renewed commitment to respect and unity. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for Mr. Archibald Gordon, journalist and communications consultant extraordinaire, for keeping us in line and for ably guiding the panel discussion and the entire program. Archie has been our sure and solid go-to for all communication-related issues and advice, and he always has a solution. Further, we are grateful to the Honorable Minister of Education, Youth, Honorable Mrs. Favors Williams, through her representative, Dr. Clover Hamilton Flowers. It is our hope that this civic handbook will be considered as an addition to the ministry's expansion of its program, Culture in Education, that was mentioned by Dr. Flowers, which indeed is a great move towards promoting civic education. We look forward to hearing from you, Dr. Flowers, and from the ministry by extension. Special thanks to our panelists for accepting our invitation and for passionately providing valuable and informative commentary. PARI member, Mr. Othniel Lamy, you did justice to our national anthem. Mr. Marlon Williams Jr., Your music has left echoes in our hearts. You excited us, you charmed us, you fascinated us, and you've caused some of us to want to learn to play the saxophone. Thank you. Very special thanks to the technical support team here at the Office of the Political Ombudsman for your patience and dedication. Mr. Moderator, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure. God bless you and God bless our Jamaica.
Thank you very much, Anne-Marie. With so many sentiments said, I think at this point, all I'm left to do is to close, because I think much of what I would have echoed has been echoed well and said perhaps even better. The one thing I would like to repeat, however, is that we must be the change that we want to see in the world. I work in several different organizations, volunteer work for the Press Association of Jamaica, as well as my Homeowners Association, and eventually my school as well. And one of the things that I see very often in a lot of these organizations, people looking forward and looking and saying, what can you do for me? And I think it's this handbook and this launch reinforces the idea that we don't need to be looking onto others to do for us. We can do it for ourselves. And indeed, from an idea, we have actually seen the blossoming of an idea and the completion of the handbook today. And now we have an opportunity to go out, read the handbook, educate, and share with others, and take on the task of building the kind of country that we want, and we say we want, and that we indeed want to see. So I want to thank all of you today for turning up for this historic launch, again, by the Office of the Political Ombudsman. I want to thank the Madam Political Ombudsman herself, as well as all of the representatives from the various stakeholder groups who were here today. And I want to thank you for tuning in, whether through this Zoom meeting or online, with our partners at the Public Broadcasting Corporation of Jamaica, and have a great afternoon. I'm Archibald Gordon. Thank you so much for sharing with us this afternoon, and take care.
Wonderful.